The old house was supposed to be our fresh start, a sprawling Victorian in a quiet, tree-lined suburb, miles from the frantic pace of my advertising job in the city. My wife, Clara, had fallen in love with its sprawling gardens, and our 5-year-old son, Leo, had been enchanted by its hidden nooks and crannies. I, David, a man perpetually juggling deadlines and domesticity, hoped it would bring us closer, a sanctuary where the constant low hum of anxiety in my chest might finally quiet. We bought it for its charm, for its promise of a simpler life. Didn't realize that secrets came with the deed. The first hint of trouble wasn't a creaking floorboard or a rattling window. It was the wardrobe. An enormous dark oak monstrosity carved with grotesque gargoyles. It stood in the master bedroom when we moved in, too heavy to move. Clara had called it character. I called it an antique dust magnet. But it fit the house, and eventually we just lived around it. It was imposing, certainly, but inanimate, or so I thought. It started subtly, a slight creak from the wardrobe door in the dead of night. I'd stir, blame the old house settling, and drift back to sleep. Then the door would be ajar in the morning, just a fraction. Clara would close it, muttering about drafts. We dismissed it, normal house quirks, until Leo started talking. He'd wake up often now, creeping into our room, his small face pale. "Daddy," he'd whisper, clutching his worn teddy bear. "The wardrobe keeps opening, and someone is whispering my name." My blood ran cold the first time he said it. "Whispering your name, sweetie? Are you sure you weren't just dreaming?" I'd tried to sound reassuring, but a knot of ice formed in my stomach. Leo had never had an active imagination in that way. He was a very literal child. "Yes," he'd insisted, his eyes wide and earnest. "From inside, he says, 'Leo, come play.'" The air in our bedroom suddenly felt heavy, thick with an unseen presence. My gaze instinctively darted to the looming wardrobe in the corner. Its dark wood seemed to absorb the dim nightlight, becoming a deeper, hungrier shadow. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic rhythm against the chilling calm of Leo's voice. Clara, usually quick to dismiss anything supernatural, had grown quiet, her own eyes flickering towards the antique behemoth. We'd always prided ourselves on being logical, on facing real-world problems. But this felt profoundly, terribly wrong. The next night, I made sure the wardrobe door was tightly latched, pulling the heavy brass handle firmly into place. I even wedged a small piece of cardboard under the door, convinced it was just a loose hinge. We tucked Leo into his bed, reassured him, and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the old house, every rustle of the leaves outside, was amplified, twisted into something sinister. I lay awake, listening, straining to hear anything from Leo's room, from the wardrobe itself. And then, just after 2 a.m., I heard it, a soft click, distinct, unmistakable. My eyes snapped open. The wardrobe door in our bedroom was slowly, agonizingly swinging inward, revealing a sliver of inky blackness within. A faint, almost imperceptible scent drifted from the opening. Something dry and musty, like very old paper, mixed with a hint of something sweet, like dried flowers, but with an underlying sharpness, like dust and forgotten things. And then, from the black depths of the wardrobe, I heard it. A whisper, not loud, barely a breath, but clear as if spoken directly into my ear. It was a man's voice, low and raspy, full of an unsettling charm. And it wasn't speaking to me, it was repeating my son's name, elongating it, drawing it out like a siren's call. "Lo, come play. We've been waiting." My blood ran cold, a wave of pure, unadulterated dread washing over me. I knew, with a horrifying certainty that chilled me to my very bones, that if I didn't get to that wardrobe now, if I allowed that voice to continue, our nightmare would truly begin. Build up. Atmosphere, unease, and foreshadowing. My body was a statue of terror fixed on the slowly widening gap in the wardrobe door. The raspy whisper beckoning my son still echoed in the silent room. Clara stirred beside me, a soft murmur of sleep, oblivious to the horror unfolding. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat a painful thud against the oppressive silence. The faint scent of old paper and something sweet but sharp intensified, permeating the air, clinging to my throat like a shroud. This wasn't just a draft or a loose hinge. This was an invitation from something ancient and malevolent. I finally managed to move, slowly, agonizingly, pulling myself upright in bed, my eyes never leaving the dark maw of the wardrobe. The moonlight, filtering through the window, seemed to avoid its depths, leaving it an absolute blackness, a portal to somewhere else, entirely. Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door shut, to nail it closed, to burn the monstrous thing to ashes. But a chilling fascination, born of desperate fear for Leo, held me captive. My past, a messy tapestry of professional ambition and suppressed anxieties, felt like it was unraveling. I had always dismissed anything supernatural, pragmatist to my core, but ever since the move, a deep unease had settled in. I remembered the strange dream I'd had the first night we slept here. I was wandering through endless shadowy corridors, lined with closed, dark wooden doors, and from behind each, I could hear soft, rhythmic tapping, like tiny knuckles against wood. I'd woken in a sweat, dismissed it as new house jitters. Now the memory felt ominously prophetic. My fear wasn't just for Leo, but for the erosion of my own carefully constructed reality. Subtle oddities continued to manifest. The antique grandfather clock in the hallway, a fixture of the house, would sometimes stop dead at precisely 2 a.m., then start again, ticking away as if nothing had happened. Our beloved family cat, Mittens, usually a fearless hunter, began to avoid the master bedroom altogether, his fur bristling and his tail tucked whenever he even approached the door. He'd sit at the end of the hallway, staring intently at our bedroom, occasionally letting out a low, guttural growl at unseen things. Even Clara, typically skeptical, had started complaining of cold spots in the room, fleeting chills that had no logical source. The most unnerving foreshadowing came from Leo himself. He stopped talking about the whispers, which was a relief at first. But he started drawing endless pictures of a dark, tall wardrobe, and inside a shadowy figure with long, spindly fingers reaching out. He never drew its face. He'd just color in a black void where the face should be. When I asked him who it was, he'd just shrug and say, "The man who wants to play." His innocence only amplified the horror. The tension in the house became palpable. Every evening as dusk settled, a quiet dread would begin to coil in my stomach. The soft creaks of the old house, once charming, now sounded like deliberate footsteps. The gentle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, usually a background noise, now felt like a low, resonant thrum, a vibration that permeated the very foundations of the house. And always that faint, musty scent like old dust and a hint of something sweet would drift through the air, most prominent near the master bedroom. Clara, usually so vibrant, grew withdrawn, her eyes constantly darting towards the wardrobe even in daylight. She started leaving a small lamp on in the hallway at night, a silent acknowledgement of the growing darkness. We found ourselves whispering in our own home, afraid to break the suffocating silence, afraid of what might listen. Our casual conversations became terse, strained, punctuated by unspoken fears. We were aware of the problem, but utterly powerless. One evening, as I was tucking Leo in, he looked up at me, his eyes large and serious. "Daddy," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "the man in the wardrobe? He says he knows about Mommy's necklace." Clara had a very specific, antique locket, a family heirloom that she never took off. It was unique. No one outside our immediate family knew about it. My blood ran cold. The man in the wardrobe wasn't just a figment of a child's imagination. He knew things, intimate things. And as the moon cast long, twisting shadows through the bedroom window, I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that our attempts to ignore or rationalize the wardrobe's presence were futile. It was reaching into our lives, knowing our secrets, and preparing to make its next terrifying move. Part 3. Climactic Moment. Terror Unleashed. The revelation about Clara's necklace had shattered the last vestiges of my disbelief. This wasn't some benign old house playing tricks. It was something intelligent, something malevolent, deeply woven into our lives. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum against the chilling truth. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to know. That night, after Clara and Leo were asleep, I set up the camera. A small, high-definition security camera disguised as a bedside clock pointed directly at the wardrobe. Its infrared night vision would capture every detail in the pitch black. I checked the live feed on my phone, the grainy monochrome image of the sleeping room and the looming wardrobe clear on the screen. Then I slid into bed, my nerves screaming, waiting for the inevitable. Clara was dead to the world beside me, her breathing even. I wished I could join her in oblivion. The waiting was pure torment. Every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind outside seemed to draw out the minutes into an agonizing eternity. The air in the room grew heavy, the faint, musty scent thickening, cloying. My breath hitched in my throat. My eyes were glued to the phone screen, the small green indicator light on the camera, a tiny beacon of nervous anticipation. Precisely at 2 a.m., the grandfather clock in the hallway chimed once, a single mournful gong. And then it stopped. Utter silence. Simultaneously on my phone screen, the wardrobe door began to open, slowly, agonizingly, just as Leo had described, just as I had heard. The small gap widened, revealing a sliver of absolute hungry darkness. My breath caught in my throat. My body was rigid, paralyzed by a mixture of terror and an intense, perverse fascination. The whispers began faint at first, then growing clearer like dry leaves rustling across old stone. It was that raspy, insidious male voice, calling Leo's name, promising play. But this time, it wasn't just words. Through the opening, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer pulsed within the blackness like heat haze over dry asphalt, but it was cold, impossibly cold. Then the true horror began. On the camera feed from the inky blackness of the wardrobe, something began to emerge. Not a hand, not a limb. It was a mass, a shifting, roiling darkness like smoke given form, but denser, more solid. It seemed to expand, to writhe, pushing out from the wardrobe's depths. And within its amorphous shape, faint, glowing points of light appeared. Not eyes, not exactly, but clusters of pinpricks like dying embers that pulsed with a malevolent, ancient awareness. My mind reeled. This wasn't a ghost. This wasn't a person. This was something else entirely. Something formless. Something that transcended physical reality, yet was terrifyingly present. The room on the screen seemed to warp around it, the furniture subtly blurring, the walls appearing to breathe. My perception of reality stretched thin, threatening to snap. Was this thing a manifestation of the house itself? A creature of shadow? Or was it something far older? A forgotten entity drawn to Leo's innocence? To our vulnerability? The shadowy mass pulsed forward, extending from the wardrobe like a grasping tendril, heading straight for my side of the bed. It cast no discernible shadow itself, yet it made the room around it darker, sucking the light, the warmth, the very air from the space. The whispers intensified, now a cacophony of overlapping voices, a chorus of malevolent glee, all repeating Leo's name, promising endless play. And then, cutting through the din, a new sound, dry and brittle, like old bones rubbing together, emerged from the wardrobe. Click, click, click. Rhythmic, insistent. The shadowy tendril reached my bedside table, hovering over my phone, which was still displaying the live camera feed. I watched, horrified and helpless, as the mass descended, engulfing the phone. The screen flickered violently, then distorted into a swirling vortex of static and black. The green indicator light on the camera went out. The last thing I saw before the screen went completely dark was a single, large, unblinking eye opening within the shadowy mass, staring directly into the camera, directly at me. It was black, cold, and filled with an ancient hunger. And as the phone screen went black, the rhythmic click, click, click from the wardrobe stopped. The whispering ceased. The room was plunged into an absolute suffocating silence, but I could still feel it, that cold, vast presence, right beside my bed. My heart hammered, a frantic drum in the sudden void. I was trapped, frozen by a terror so profound, it stole my breath. And then, from the direction of Leo's room, I heard it, a soft, innocent giggle. My nightmare was far from over. Resolution, twisted ending. The giggle from Leo's room, soft and innocent, yet utterly chilling, was the final pinprick of sanity. My body remained frozen, my eyes wide and unblinking, in the suffocating darkness of our bedroom. The air was still thick with that musty, sweet and sharp scent, a testament to the horror that had just unfolded. The silence that followed was a physical entity pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating. My phone, a dead weight in my hand, was cold, its screen a blank, unforgiving void. The rhythmic click, click, click from the wardrobe was gone, replaced by an unsettling quiet that felt more ominous than any sound. With a superhuman effort, I tore my gaze from the wardrobe, from the space where the shadow had been, and stumbled out of bed. My legs were numb, my muscles screaming, but a primal, desperate need to reach Leo propelled me forward. Clara, still deeply asleep beside me, was oblivious, her steady breathing a stark contrast to my own ragged gasps. I didn't wake her. I couldn't. I had to see Leo. I had to know. I crept to Leo's room, the hallway dark and cold, every shadow seeming to stretch and writhe. The grandfather clock remained silent, its hands frozen at 2 a.m., a permanent marker of the time my reality had shattered. His door was slightly ajar, a sliver of faint light spilling from within. My heart pounded against my ribs. I pushed the door open slowly, cautiously, expecting I didn't know what. Leo was in his bed, sleeping soundly, his teddy bear clutched to his chest. A small, innocent smile played on his lips. His nightlight cast a soft glow. Everything seemed normal. Too normal. I slumped against the doorframe, relief flooding through me so potent it made my knees buckle. it was over. Just a terrifying hallucination, a stress-induced nightmare. But then my gaze fell upon something else. Beside his bed on the floor, perfectly centered on his small, colorful rug, lay a single, intricate wooden carving. It was a miniature wardrobe, an exact replica of the monstrosity in our bedroom, complete with tiny, grotesque gargoyles. Its little door was open, just a fraction, revealing a sliver of darkness. And from that tiny opening, a faint, sweet, and musty scent emanated. The exact scent that had filled our bedroom during the climax of my nightmare. My blood ran cold again, the fragile illusion of normalcy shattering. I reached for the carving, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. It felt impossibly old, its polished wood warm to the touch. And as my fingers traced the tiny gargoyles, I heard it again. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper coming from the miniature wardrobe itself. "Leo, come play. We've been waiting." It was the same raspy voice, scaled down, echoing from the palm of my hand. The true resolution, twisted and insidious, began to solidify. The wardrobe wasn't just in our bedroom. It was connected. It was a conduit, a portal. And the entity wasn't just reaching into our house. It was reaching into Leo. He wasn't just hearing whispers. He was communicating. His innocent giggle was a response. My initial fear, a terrifying incident, had morphed into a chilling realization. The horror was deeply embedded, permanent. My life became a constant, waking nightmare. The paranoia was relentless. Every time Leo laughed or whispered to himself, I would flinch, my gaze darting to the tiny wooden wardrobe I had found, which now sat on his bedside table. A silent, menacing toy. I tried to get rid of it. I threw it in the trash, then outside, then even tried to burn it. But every morning it would be back, nestled on Leo's nightstand, its tiny door slightly ajar. The psychological scars were profound. My sleep was filled with fragmented, terrifying visions. Long, dark corridors, rows of antique wardrobes, each emitting a faint whisper of a child's name. I felt a constant coldness in my chest, a lingering dread that never truly dissipated. I was no longer just David, the father and husband. I was a guardian, constantly vigilant against an unseen, insidious threat that now resided in my son's imagination and perhaps in his very soul. My immediate story of the terrifying broadcast had ended, but its true resolution was an unending torment. I had survived, but I was not whole. My family was not safe. We were merely living in a temporary reprieve, forever bound to the whispering darkness of the wardrobe. Final takeaway. Chilling moral or whisper, the silence in our house is no longer a comfort. It's a fragile membrane, stretched thin over the constant low hum of whispers that only I can truly hear now. My experience with the wardrobe taught me a horrifying truth. Some doors, even those that seem to close, only lead deeper into the darkness. My fear for Leo is a living, breathing thing, a constant companion that gnaws at my insides. The trauma of helplessness, of being unable to protect my child from an unseen evil, has become the bedrock of my existence. I watch him play, his innocent laughter sometimes punctuated by a sudden, soft murmur, a whisper I can almost make out. He's happy, seemingly oblivious to the terrifying game he's joined, but I see the subtle changes. The way his eyes sometimes linger on the wardrobe, a faraway look in their depths, or the unsettling precision with which he arranges his toys, almost as if following unseen instructions. Clara remains largely oblivious, attributing my constant vigilance to stress, to my overprotective nature. She sees the surface, the mundane, She doesn't hear the whispers, doesn't feel the cold spots, doesn't see the tiny wooden wardrobe return each morning. And I can't tell her. How do you explain that your child is being called to by something ancient and malevolent from within a piece of furniture? How do you explain that your sanctuary has become a hunting ground? I often find myself standing by Leo's bedroom door late at night, listening, just listening, for the soft creak of the wardrobe, for the low, raspy whisper that promises play. And sometimes, very rarely, I hear a new sound from his room. A faint, almost imperceptible click, 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 like tiny wooden gears turning, or small ancient bones rubbing together. It's the sound I heard when the shadow consumed my phone. It's the sound of the game continuing. I'm still here, still in this house, still watching, still listening. Because the man in the wardrobe is still whispering. And he's still waiting. Waiting for Leo to come play, waiting for Leo to join the others. And I know, with a chilling certainty, that one night, very soon, I will hear that whisper. And it won't be just for Leo. It will be for me too. And the tiny wooden wardrobe on Leo's nightstand will open, just a fraction, revealing a sliver of that hungry, endless darkness within. And then there will be no more whispers, only silence.